Harper Audio presents Home Alone 2 by Todd Strasser, performed by Tim Curry. On a cold, dark Illinois night, a police car stopped at a railroad crossing. In the back of the patrol car, Marv Merchin's head throbbed. Next to him, his partner Harry Lime stared angrily ahead. All Marv could think about was that blonde-haired McAllister kid grinning and waving as the cops put them into the back of the patrol car. If he ever got his hands on that kid again, he'd... Suddenly, Harry nudged Marv and revealed a lockpick he had hidden in his hand. Marv grinned. While the cops sat in the front seat, Harry picked the car door lock and the two bad guys quietly slipped away. That night, Kevin McAllister stayed up late cleaning his house. Without warning, the door burst open and there stood Harry with a nasty grin on his face. Marv was reaching for Kevin's throat.
"Merry Christmas, little fella!"
Harry chuckled. Kevin was still home alone, and these guys wanted to carve him into little pieces. It was time to run. "You're all out of tricks, kid!" cried Marv. Maybe not. Kevin dashed out the back of the house and into the garage. He grabbed the remote garage door opener and then climbed up into the small storage attic above the cars. Outside, Harry ran to the garage door. It was closed, and the handle to open it was missing. As Harry stuck his finger in the hole where the handle used to be, Kevin pressed the automatic door opener. Suddenly, the door began to rise. The next thing he knew, Harry was rising along with the door. In the garage, Marv saw two sneakered feet hanging from the storage attic. Marv grabbed them and pulled. But it wasn't Kevin. It was a child-sized mannequin, and there was a rope attached to it. Suddenly, Marv heard an engine cough to life above him. Marv looked up just in time to see the churning blades of a lawnmower appear above him. It was too late. The lawnmower tipped over the edge and came crashing down. In a dark cell, Marv Merchin screamed in his sleep and woke up terrified. In a cell nearby, Harry Lime heard his partner. Harry had also had a nightmare about the McAllister kid. Harry had a plan, and if it worked, both he and Marv would be busting out of this joint in a couple of days. Then they'd have to get some money and leave the country fast. Only one thing could slow them down. Harry's fists tightened. If he ever saw that McAllister kid again. December the 22nd, Oak Park, Illinois, 6 p.m. The ground was covered with a white blanket of snow, and the houses were lit with colorful, twinkling Christmas lights. On the outside, the large brick McAllister house resembled the other stately homes on the block, but inside was a tornado of pre-travel chaos as everyone rushed to pack for their holiday trip.
"Has anyone seen my sunblock?"
shouted Tracy, a pretty dark-haired girl.
"What's the point of going to Florida if you're going to use sunblock?"
her younger sister Sondra asked.
"Yeah," chimed Megan. "I'm getting toasted."
"So you'll just be a skag with a slightly darker shade of skin," said her older brother Buzz.
"Buzz is jealous,"
yelled Lenny, who was 14 and blonde. Fuller, the youngest member of the McAllister clan, watched the human logjam. Now a chubby, bald man came into the room. He was Frank, and he was Fuller's father. That day he had driven his family to Oak Park so that the McAllister clan could all travel together the next morning.
"Hey,"
Frank said, waving a copy of the newspaper.
"remember those robbers Kevin caught last Christmas? They just escaped from prison."
No one paid any attention, so Frank pushed his way up the stairs. The only member of the McAllister clan who wasn't in a rush was Kevin. He sat on the bed in his parents' room and played with his Talkboy recorder while he watched TV. Near him, his mother, Kate McAllister, was busy packing a suitcase. "Aren't you nervous about your solo with the children's choir tonight?" Kate asked.
"That's the third time you've asked,"
Kevin replied. "I'm just concerned," his mother said. "Are you packed?"
"Yes, Mom."
"Oh," Kate said. "I forgot to show you what Grandma sent you for the trip." Kevin rolled his eyes.
Donald Duck slippers?
"Much better than that," Kate said, taking a plastic package out of her suitcase. "An inflatable clown for the pool."
Just what I always wanted.
Kevin groaned. He turned back to the TV. A grand-looking hotel came on the TV screen.
Guests of the new celebrity Ding Dang Dong stay at the world-renowned Plaza Hotel. It's New York's most exciting hotel experience. For reservations, call...
Now that would be a cool place to go, Kevin thought, as his father Peter entered the bedroom. "You better get your jacket and tie on," Peter said. "We have to leave for the Christmas pageant in a few minutes." "My tie's in my room, and I can't get it because Uncle Frank is taking a shower in the bathroom." "Just run in and get your tie," Peter said. "It's okay." As Kevin left his parents' bedroom, he found his cousin Sondra and sister Megan dragging their suitcases down the hall. "Dad said we have to have our suitcases down by the door before we go to the Christmas pageant," Megan, the know-it-all, said.
Are you my new mother?
Kevin asked. He couldn't stand it when she nagged him. "Remember what happened last year?" Sondra asked. Kevin felt his teeth clench. He hated the way they all loved to remind him how he'd missed the trip to Paris and ruined the vacation for everyone. Kevin went into his room. He could hear the shower running in the bathroom and Frank singing. Kevin sneaked over to the bathroom door and pushed it open a little. Kevin aimed the talk boy towards his uncle and started to record the terrible off-key singing. Suddenly, Frank noticed him.
"Get out of here, you nosy little jerk, or I'll come out and slap you silly."
Kevin slammed the door, grabbed his tie, and raced out of the room. Didn't anyone have a sense of humor anymore? A little while later, Kevin stood with the children's choir on the stage at his school. Each member of the choir held a small, glowing electric candle. Buzz stood on a riser behind Kevin. In the audience, Kevin spotted his parents sitting next to Uncle Frank and his wife, Aunt Leslie. Down in front of the choir, Ms. Wickersham, the music teacher, smiled and nodded. The choir began to sing. Kevin swallowed nervously. He'd never sung a solo before such a large crowd before. Behind him, Buzz was ticked off. As usual, the little twerp was getting all the attention. Buzz had an idea. He grabbed the candle from the kid singing next to him and smiled. Kevin took a deep breath. This was it, his big solo. He began to sing. A bunch of people burst out laughing. Kevin's ears burned with humiliation. Even the kids in the choir had joined in. Could his singing really be that bad? And why did his ears feel so hot? Suddenly, Kevin turned around. Buzz was holding 2 electric candles and grinning like an idiot. The big jerk had held his candles behind Kevin's ears, making them glow in the middle of his big solo. Kevin slugged Buzz in the stomach. The big dummy lost his balance and fell into the other kids. The whole choir collapsed like a bunch of bowling pins. Kate McAllister closed her eyes in despair. Why was it always her children who caused the worst scenes? The entire clan was gathered in the living room. Buzz and Kevin sat in chairs facing them. "Buzz, you go first," Kate said. Buzz stood up.
I want to apologize to all of you for whatever displeasure I caused. And I want to apologize to my brother. My prank was immature and ill-timed. Immature or not, it was pretty hilarious,
Uncle Frank said. The other adults glared angrily at him.
I can assure you all that there will be absolutely no more shenanigans from me,
Buzz continued, with the most phony apology Kevin had ever heard. Kate smiled proudly. "That was very nice, Buzz." Buzz turned back to Kevin and whispered,
"Try to beat that, you little trout sniffer."
"Kevin," Kate said, "what do you have to say?" Kevin rose and stared at them. Couldn't they see that Buzz was yanking their chains? Well, Kevin thought, I'm going to tell them the truth.
I'm not sorry, he said defiantly. I did it because Buzz humiliated me, and since he gets away with everything, I let him have it.
He turned to leave.
Stop, Kevin,
Kate shouted.
If you walk out of here, you'll sleep in the attic,
his father yelled. Kevin shrugged. So what else is new? Kevin laid on the fold-out couch and stared up at the attic rafters. How could they ever believe Buzz? He thought angrily. What a bunch of jerks. A moment later, Kate opened the door and entered the room. Kevin ignored her. Your brother Buzz apologized to you, she said.
He didn't mean what he said. He was just kissing up to you.
I'm sorry, Kevin, but I don't believe that, Kate replied. You've been so negative lately. Now we're all getting on that airplane at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Your father's spending a lot of money to take us all to Florida. When you're ready to apologize to Buzz and the rest of the family...
I'm not apologizing to Buzz,
Kevin shouted.
Then you can stay up here for the rest of the night. Fine,
said Kevin.
I don't want to be down there anyway. I can't trust anyone in this family, and you know what? If I had my own money, I'd go on my own vacation, alone, and I'd have the most fun of my whole life.
You got your wish last year, Kate warned him. Maybe you'll get it again this year.
I sure hope so,
Kevin yelled at her. Kate gazed helplessly at her angry young son. She turned and went back down the stairs. Kevin watched her leave.
Someday I'm going to go away all by myself. No one will bother me. No one will make fun of me. No one will cause me any trouble.
The morning sunlight peeked through the bedroom curtains. Kate lay under the covers, dreaming. She was awakened by a loud knocking sound.
Hey, anybody home?
A voice shouted.
You're going to miss your plane.
Plane? Kate thought. Oh, no. She stared at Peter in wide-eyed terror.
We did it again,
they screamed. A few minutes later, the front door burst open and 14 hastily dressed people dragged their luggage outside and into the 2 airport vans waiting in the driveway.
Everyone present and accounted for?
The van's driver asked.
Yes, Kate said. Go!
The vans roared out of the driveway. Next stop, O'Hare Airport and their plane to Florida, if it hadn't left yet. With 5 minutes left before departure time, both vans screeched to a stop in front of the American Airlines terminal. People and bags began pouring out of the vans.
Hurry, everyone!
Peter shouted as the skycaps quickly tagged the luggage and threw it onto baggage carts. The families rushed into the terminal, but Kevin lagged behind.
Dad!
He tugged at his father's tan raincoat.
I need batteries for my talk boy.
His father always carried extra batteries in his travel bag. Kevin reached for the bag.
Not now,
his father said.
Come on.
Kate tugged him to the doors.
Let's go. Wait a minute.
Kevin pulled away.
I really need batteries.
Peter put the bag down, took out his wallet, and gave the skycap his tip. Kevin waited until his father put his wallet back. Then he quietly took the bag. Peter ran inside, and Kevin followed. Keeping one eye on his father's tan raincoat, Kevin unzipped the brown bag. Inside, he found a Polaroid camera, his father's wallet, an address book, an envelope filled with cash, and a package of batteries.
I knew it,
Kevin thought. He started to replace the batteries in his talk boy. As Kevin concentrated on putting the new batteries in the talk boy, another man in a tan raincoat started to rush toward his plane. Kevin saw this tan raincoat and followed it. The man hurried through a gate and into a jetway.
Wait for me,
Kevin shouted, but as he hurried toward the ticket agent, he tripped. Kevin slammed into the ticket agent, and the 150 boarding passes she was holding fell to the floor.
Gosh, I'm sorry,
Kevin panted as he got up. Don't worry about it, the ticket agent said.
Are you on this flight? Yeah,
Kevin said in a rush.
And so's my family, but they're already on the plane.
Do you have your boarding pass?
It's...
Kevin pointed down at the boarding passes scattered all over the floor. All right. Kevin and the ticket agent hurried down the jetway and into the plane. Do you see your family? The ticket agent asked. The plane was a wide body, and the aisles were crowded with people. Kevin spotted the tan raincoat. The man wearing it had his back turned.
That's my dad!
Good, said the ticket agent. Take any open seat and have a Merry Christmas. Kevin found a place to sit. He didn't see any familiar faces. That bothered him for a moment, but he decided his family must have been spread around the plane in random seats. Kevin settled back and slipped on the earphones of his talkboy. It was going to be a long, boring flight, and he figured he'd better entertain himself. Not far away, another jet was also pulling away from its gate. In the first-class section, Peter and Kate were still settling into their seats. "I never thought we'd make it," Peter said as he sat back. Next to him, Kate bit her lip. "Something wrong?" Peter asked. "I don't know," Kate replied. "It's that feeling." "That you forgot something?" "It's just bad memories, that's all. We're all here. There's nothing to worry about." Kate smiled weakly and tried to relax. It had been a year since they'd all tried to take a Christmas vacation together. She just hoped this one would go better than the last. As his jet touched down on the runway, Kevin looked up in surprise. The time had really passed quickly. Kevin got his coat and the brown travel bag and walked up the jetway. He waited by the gate and looked for a familiar face. Dozens of people passed, but none of them were McAllisters. Finally, the flight crew came out, pulling their bags behind them. Kevin looked back into the jetway. It was empty. "That's weird," he thought. "Where's my family? They wouldn't just leave him. Not after what happened last year." Through the windows, he could see a city skyline looming in the distance. Suddenly, Kevin felt queasy. He turned to the ticket counter. "What city is that back there?" he asked the agent. "New York," the agent said. "New York?" Kevin's eyes went wide. "I did it again." Kevin was in a state of shock. He walked slowly toward the picture windows. It was unbelievable. His dumb family was in Florida. He was in New York. Gradually, the shock began to wear off. "That's right," he thought. "Those jerks are in Florida. I'm in New York." A big smile grew on Kevin's face. "Hey, this could be great." The McAllister clan stood around the baggage carousel, staring out the windows. They could see a few palm trees and one or two senior citizens, but mostly they saw rain, thick sheets of it pouring down like a waterfall. "Great way to start a vacation," Kate said with a sigh. "It can get worse," Peter said. The bags were starting to come down the chute. "Everybody take their own luggage," Kate shouted. As the first bag came around, Peter picked it up. "Give this to Kevin," he said, passing the bag to Kate, who gave it to Leslie. "Give this to Kevin," Leslie said, giving the bag to Megan. "It's Kevin's bag." Megan handed the bag to Fuller. Fuller turned to give it to Kevin, but Kevin wasn't there. "Kevin's not here," he said, giving Sandra the bag. "Kevin's not here," Sandra said, and gave the bag to Kate, who was busy passing out the other bags. "Kevin's not here," Kate said as she handed the bag to Peter. Peter stared at her. "What did you say?" "I said..." Kate's eyes went wide and she screamed, "Kevin!" The Miami Airport police were housed in a small office near the main terminal. Kate and Peter sat across from an officer named Bennett. "Where did you last see your son?" Officer Bennett asked. "In O'Hare Airport," Peter said. Bennett nodded. "And when did you notice your son was missing, ma'am?" Not until we picked up our baggage here," Kate said. "I see. Has the boy ever run away from home?" "Absolutely not," Peter said. "Has he ever been in a situation where he's been on his own?" He was left home by accident last year," Kate explained, embarrassed. Officer Bennett nodded. "We'll call Chicago and notify them of the situation. The odds are that's where he is. It's very unlikely he'd be anywhere else. In the back seat of a taxicab crawling through traffic, Kevin studied a New York City street map. Central Park was his next stop, but his attention was diverted by a grand-looking hotel.
The Plaza Hotel, Kevin said. New York's most exciting hotel experience.
Kevin got out of the cab and was just about to cross the street into the park when he saw a woman with long, stringy grey hair and dirty clothes coming toward him. A bunch of mangy pigeons were perched on her head and shoulders, and dozens more clustered on the sidewalk around her feet.
Ew, sick.
Kevin was disgusted and quickly turned away. He could visit Central Park later. Not far away, 2 other recent arrivals to the Big Apple were taking in the sights. The escaped convicts Marv Murchins and Harry Lime strolled through bustling Manhattan. Kevin waited in a crowd of holiday shoppers for a traffic light to change. The walk light came on, and Kevin followed the other pedestrians. Across the street, Harry and Marv also stepped off the curb. Seconds later, Kevin brushed past the escaped cons. Suddenly, Harry stopped and turned around. He caught a glimpse of a kid with blonde hair.
Nah,
He thought.
it couldn't be.
What's the matter?
Marv asked. Harry shook his head.
Thought I saw something.
Officer Bennett was on the phone. Kate tapped her fingers nervously, and Peter gnawed on his thumbnail. Bennett hung up and shook his head. Sorry, folks. The police at O'Hare haven't seen him. Kate and Peter stared at each other. What if Kevin had been kidnapped? Do either of you have a recent photo of the boy? Bennett asked.
I have one.
Peter reached for his wallet, but it wasn't there. My wallet's gone. Where could it be? Kate asked. It was in my travel bag. Kevin wanted it at the airport. You think he took it? Kate asked.
I bet he did.
Peter said. Then he could have your wallet, Bennett said. Were there credit cards in it?
Sure.
Peter said. We'll notify the credit card companies. If your son uses any of the cards, we'll be able to get a location on him. Kate shook her head wearily. I don't think Kevin even knows how to use a credit card. If Kevin was going to spend his vacation in New York, he'd need a place to stay. So why not try New York's most exciting hotel experience? As he stepped through the huge brass doors of the Plaza Hotel, he could see that this was his kind of place. To the left of the lobby, he found a row of telephones along one wall. Getting the Plaza to accept a reservation from a kid was going to take a bit of ingenuity, but with the help of his talk boy, Kevin thought he could do it. He prepared the talk boy for the call, then dialed the hotel number. As soon as the reservations agent answered, he hit the play button, then slowed it down so that his voice sounded deep and mature.
Hello, this is Peter McAllister, the father. I'd like to have a hotel room, please, with an extra large bed and a TV.
Kevin pressed the pause button.
Do you have a credit card, sir?
The agent asked. Kevin pressed play.
A credit card? You got it.
The next thing the agent heard was the account number on Peter McAllister's Visa card. A few seconds later, Kevin had his reservation. Next stop, the hotel reception counter. Kevin crossed the lobby. A female clerk stared at him curiously. Her name tag read Ms. Acevedo.
Can I help you?
She asked.
Reservation for McAllister. A reservation for yourself?
She asked. Kevin had anticipated that question.
Are you serious? Think about it. A kid coming into a hotel and making a reservation? I'm traveling with my dad,
Kevin explained. He's at a business meeting right now. He dropped me off here and gave me his credit card. He said you should check me into the room so I don't get into mischief. Kevin slid his father's Visa card across the counter and held his breath. She seemed to take a long time inspecting it. Finally, Miss Azevedo slid the card into a small machine and imprinted a credit ticket. Then she handed the card back to him.
All right.
Kevin slid the credit card into his pocket.
It worked.
Ms. Acevedo called for a bellman. "I hope you'll enjoy your stay with us, and when your dad arrives, remind him that he has to come down and sign a couple of things."
My pleasure.
Kevin smiled. A heavy-set bellman appeared.
This way, sir.
The bellman picked up the travel bag.
Cool.
Kevin thought as he followed the bellman.
This is great.
Kevin smiled as he entered the suite and looked into the bedroom. Inside was a large TV, a minibar with a small refrigerator, and a bed that looked bigger than the one his parents had at home.
There's a second door out to the hall from the bedroom in case you want to go out that way.
The bellman said.
Thanks.
Kevin replied.
You know how the TV works?
The bellman asked.
I'm 10 years old, Kevin said. TV is my life.
Of course. The bellman smiled crookedly and left. Rain pelted the windows. The motel room smelled like someone's basement. Sitting on the bed, Buzz stared out the window at the dead palm trees strung with fading Christmas lights. Behind him, Uncle Frank belched and scratched his stomach through his T-shirt.
I swear, Buzz, he said, this place sure didn't look this bad when your Aunt Leslie and I honeymooned here.
Buzz wished Uncle Frank would disappear. Then, as if a miracle had occurred, Uncle Frank did leave. But a moment later, the door opened again.
Buzz?
It was his brother, Jeff.
What?
You're really upset, huh?
Buzz rolled his eyes. Very.
It's not your fault Kevin's gone,
Jeff said as he started to undress.
We were all lousy to him, but he'll make it wherever he is.
Buzz nodded, but didn't reply. Jeff got into bed and turned out the lights.
Try to get some sleep, Buzz. You'll go nuts staring out the window like that.
Buzz nodded again, but didn't take his eyes off the window. In a room across the way, there was a gorgeous woman. She'd neglected to pull her shade down. Buzz smiled to himself. He'd have to thank his brother someday. In the room next door, Kate also sat by the window. Peter came out of the bathroom. He looked pale and his eyes were puffy.
Anything?
Kate shook her head. I called the house. I thought he might be home. Peter slumped down on the bed next to her.
We'll just have to keep waiting. Do you think he's okay?
Kate's eyes were filled with hope and worry. Peter didn't want to disappoint her, so he nodded. But the truth was, neither of them knew. Kevin was stretched out on the king-size bed, eating a large hot fudge sundae and watching a black and white gangster tape he'd rented from the hotel.
Now this is a vacation,
he thought with a big smile. On the TV screen, a shapely woman let herself into a dimly lit room.
Hold it right there!
A raspy voice ordered. The startled woman gasped.
It's just me, Johnny.
The lights went on, revealing Johnny, a gangster.
I knew it was you,
Johnny said.
I could smell you getting off the elevator.
It's gardenias, Johnny.
Carlotta said nervously.
Your favorite.
Johnny didn't seem impressed.
You was here last night, too, wasn't you?
No, I was singing at the Blue Monkey last night.
On the bed, Kevin shook his head.
Don't listen to her, Johnny.
Johnny didn't.
No, you wasn't. You was here.
That's a dirty, rotten lie, Johnny.
Carlotta sounded hurt.
Don't give me that.
No, you got me all wrong.
All right, I believe you,
Johnny said, reaching down behind his desk and bringing up a black machine gun.
But my Tommy gun don't.
Johnny, I'm all wool and a yard wide. You are the only duck in my pond.
Get down on your knees and tell me you love me.
Carlotta quickly dropped to one knee.
Baby, I'm over the moon for you.
Carlotta begged. Johnny shook his head.
You gotta do better than that.
If my love was an ocean, Lindy'd have to take 2 airplanes to get across,
Carlotta cried. Johnny was quiet for a moment.
Maybe I'm off my hinges, but I believe you. That's why I'm gonna let you go.
On the bed, Kevin stopped eating. Forget it. She's rat bait. Kevin turned off the TV. Suddenly there was a sharp knock on the living room door. He'd been expecting trouble, and it sounded like it had just arrived. Kevin hopped off the bed, turned off the lights, and ran to the bathroom. He turned on the shower full blast. He made sure his inflatable clown was in position behind the shower curtain, then took the strings he'd attached to the clown's arms and hid behind the sink with his talk boy. Back in the living room, the doorknob slowly turned, and the door opened. A tall man in a dark suit peeked in. He was the hotel concierge, and he was suspicious because the mysterious Mr. McAllister had never shown up to sign the credit card slip. The concierge tiptoed through the living room toward the bathroom door. Kevin pressed play on his talk boy, and Uncle Frank's off-key singing began to fill the room. The concierge looked in. Kevin started pulling on the strings attached to the clown. The concierge saw a shadow moving and pushed the bathroom door open a little more. Kevin made the clown shake one arm angrily.
Get out of here, you nosy little jerk, or I'll come and slap you silly.
Frank's voice shouted angrily out of the talk boy. The concierge turned and hurried out of the room. Kevin heard the door shut. He came out of his hiding place and went back into the bedroom. He looked around to make sure nothing had been taken. Everything was there. Kevin picked up his father's address book and thumbed through it. Under M, he found McAllister, Rob, 51 West 95th Street, New York, New York. I should pay Uncle Rob a visit, Kevin thought. He usually gives good presents. Kevin looked out the window at the vast, dark New York night. Kevin imagined families being together out there. It was Christmas, and his family was far away in Florida. They may have been wahoos, but they were his wahoos. For the first time, Kevin felt an ache in his heart, and he knew he really missed them. The next morning, Kevin took his time showering and then slowly combed his hair. Kevin was starting to realize that he wasn't crazy about vacationing alone, especially in a place where he didn't know anyone. He would have called his parents, but he didn't know where in Miami they were staying, and even though he had a return ticket to Chicago, there was no sense in going home to an empty house. So he just had to make the best of the situation. A little while later, Kevin went down to the concierge's desk in the lobby. "Is my transportation here?" Kevin asked. "Out in front, sir," the concierge replied. "A limousine and a pizza. Compliments of the Plaza Hotel." "New York's most exciting hotel experience." Kevin winked and started across the lobby. The concierge stepped over to the reservations counter and started to type some information on the computer. He'd tracked down that kid's credit card. Maybe, just maybe, he could find an answer to this puzzle. In Central Park, Marv and Harry sat on a wooden bench, enjoying their newfound freedom. Harry was reading a newspaper.
"We gotta face the facts,"
Harry said.
"What we need is cash."
"How about hotels?" Marv asked.
"Tourists carry cash." "I got a better idea,"
Harry said.
"All the stores are open the day before Christmas, but they ain't gonna make deposits on Christmas Eve. So they gotta keep the cash in the store until the day after Christmas,"
Marv said.
"Right. And this is what I had in mind."
He pointed down at a large ad in the paper for Duncan's Toy Chest, the world-famous toy emporium.
"A toy store," Marv gasped. "That's brilliant, Harry."
Harry grinned.
"There's nobody dumb enough to knock off a toy store on Christmas Eve."
"There is now," Marv grinned back. Kevin sat in the red leather seat of the stretch limo as it cruised slowly through the city. He had just finished his pizza breakfast and was watching cartoons on the limo's TV.
This is the life, he thought. Buzz, if only you could see me now.
Kevin glanced out of the window and saw something that made his eyes bulge. Duncan's toy chest. "Please drop me off here," he said to the driver. The limo pulled to the curb, and the driver hopped out and opened Kevin's door. The driver left, and Kevin walked into the toy store. Inside, he stopped and looked around. He'd never seen anything like it. The ground floor was 2 stories high, and every inch was filled with toys. And without a moment's hesitation, he dove right in. Kevin wasn't the only person from Illinois exploring Duncan's toy chest. On the second floor, Marv and Harry stepped out of 2 large wooden playhouses.
Perfect,
Harry whispered.
Later on today, we come back and hide inside these houses. Tonight, when everybody leaves, we come out and empty the cash registers.
Downstairs, Kevin dropped an armful of toys onto the cashier's counter. Since no one was going to give him any Christmas presents, he'd decided he'd have to give them to himself. A portly, red-cheeked old man stood behind the cash register. Kevin pulled out some money.
You know, you really have a nice store here,
Kevin said.
Thank you,
the man said.
This Mr. Duncan must be a pretty nice guy.
Well, he loves kids,
the man said, as he placed Kevin's toys in a bag.
Actually, he's going to donate all the money the store makes today to the Children's Hospital.
Tonight?
Kevin asked.
Like on Christmas Eve?
He'll leave the money here in the store and take it to the hospital the day after Christmas.
That's very generous of him,
Kevin said. The thought of sick children really tugged at Kevin. He took out a $20 bill.
"Give this to Mr. Duncan,"
he said.
"The hospital needs it more than me."
That's very sweet of you,
the man said. He pointed to a miniature Christmas tree adorned with small ceramic figurines.
I'm going to let you select an object from that tree.
For free?
Kevin was amazed.
Absolutely,
the man said with a smile.
Take the turtle doves.
Both of them?
The man nodded.
The turtle dove represents friendship. You should keep one and give the other to a person who's very special to you. That way, you will remain friends forever.
Gee, thanks.
Kevin took both turtle doves from the tree.
"Merry Christmas,"
the man said.
"Merry Christmas to you, too."
Kevin picked up his bag. Then he noticed a framed portrait on the wall. The man in the portrait looked exactly like the man he'd just spoken to. A small plaque said, E.F. Duncan, founder. Kevin looked back, but the man was gone. He looked back up at the portrait in wonder. As Harry and Marv pushed out through the doors of Duncan's toy chest, Harry suddenly stopped and shaded his eyes.
I don't believe what I'm seeing.
Harry pointed at Kevin, who was standing on the sidewalk in front of them, concentrating on his street map of the city.
It can't be, Marv gasped. I must be seeing things.
"No, you ain't,"
Harry said with a nasty smile.
"What's he doing here?" "Let's ask him,"
Harry said. Kevin turned around and looked up into the faces of the 2 grungy but familiar-looking men. The shorter man smiled, and his silver tooth glinted in the sunlight.
"Hiya, pal,"
Harry said. Kevin felt his jaw drop. Kevin screamed and started to run. Harry and Marv chased after him. Ahead, Kevin saw a street vendor selling fake pearl necklaces. He grabbed some money and bought half a dozen. Kevin put each necklace in his mouth and bit through the string that held the fake pearls. Kevin raced across the pavement and scattered the loose pearls behind him. A second later, Harry and Marv hit the pearls. Whoops! Both men flipped in the air and crashed onto the street. For a moment, neither man moved. Kevin sprinted up to the Plaza Hotel and ran up to the concierge.
"There's 2 guys chasing me,"
he gasped, pointing back down the street. The concierge smiled maliciously.
What's the problem? A store wouldn't take your stolen credit card.
The next thing Kevin knew, the concierge took the card from Kevin's pocket and grabbed him by the collar.
Oh no, he thought. They're going to arrest me.
In a flash, he twisted out of the concierge's grip and ran into the hotel.
Stop that child!
Now the concierge and the bellman were chasing him. Ahead, Kevin saw Ms. Acevedo step out from the reservations counter to block his path. He went into a baseball slide and slid under her legs. As he jumped up, he saw the concierge and the bellman crash into her and fall into a heap. Kevin ran into the elevator and pressed the up button. Marv and Harry rose stiffly from the asphalt.
I can't believe we lost him, Marv groaned.
We didn't, Harry said. He went into that hotel, and when he comes out, wham! We got him.
What about his folks?
Marv asked. Harry grinned.
He ain't with his folks.
How do you know? Marv asked.
This is New York, nitwit. No parent in the world would let their kid walk around here alone.
Kevin ran into his suite and locked the door behind him. He went into the bedroom and locked that door too. He could not believe how many things had just gone wrong. It was time to go home. He opened his father's travel bag and took out the return plane ticket to Chicago. Then he took some bags of Doritos from the minibar and packed them into the travel bag along with the Polaroid camera, his father's wallet, and the toys he'd bought. Finally, he stuck the talk boy in the pocket of his coat. Suddenly, he heard the elevator doors open out in the hall. It was time to take evasive action. Kevin turned on the television and the VCR and grabbed the remote. The gangster movie started to play just as the door to the living room began to open.
Hold it right there!
The gangster on the tape shouted. In the living room, the concierge, bellman, clerk, and 2 hotel security guards stopped, surprised by the tough adult voice.
It's the concierge, sir.
The concierge said nervously.
I knew it was you. I could smell you getting off the elevator.
While the hotel employee stared wide-eyed at the door to the bedroom, Kevin pressed the mute button and skipped over Carlotta's reply.
You was here last night, too, wasn't you?
The gangster barked. The concierge shook his head. I'm terribly sorry, but you're mistaken. We're looking for a young man.
All right,
the gangster replied.
I believe you, but my Tommy gun don't.
They looked at each other in horror.
Get down on your knees and tell me you love me, the gangster demanded.
In the bedroom, Kevin hit the pause button and waited. In the living room, the hotel employees slowly sank to the floor. Then the concierge said,
I love you.
Kevin hit play, and the gangster barked angrily.
You gotta do better than that.
We love you, the terrified hotel employees gasped in unison. Kevin grabbed the travel bag and ran out of the bedroom door to the hallway and disappeared into a stairwell. He ran down the stairs and then out into a service corridor. He burst through the 2 swinging doors and into a large garage with a truck-loading dock. He ran to the edge of the dock and jumped right into the waiting arms of Harry and Marv.
Nice of you to drop in, kid.
Harry grinned as he twisted Kevin's arms behind his back.
That's the end of part 1. Please fast forward the tape to the end and turn it over.